Why isn't Linux the default OS for most users? It's a question that has puzzled many. Welcome to the world of operating systems where Linux, a powerful and highly customizable OS, exists. It's a free, open-source platform, designed to empower users with the ability to modify as per their needs. It's robust, secure, and offers a world of possibilities that other operating systems don't. Yet, the reality is, most computer users around the globe are booting up their machines with Windows or macOS, not Linux. Despite the flexibility, the freedom, and the robustness that Linux provides, it still isn't the default choice for many. You might wonder why. What's keeping the average user from embracing Linux? It's not for lack of benefits, but rather a series of barriers that make Linux less appealing to the general audience. So what are these barriers? What's holding Linux back from becoming the go-to operating system for many? Let's delve deeper into the reasons why Linux isn't the operating system of choice for many. The first major hurdle for most users is the complexity of Linux. Linux, in its purest form, is an open-source operating system that is built around a command-line interface. This means that instead of clicking on icons or using drop-down menus like you would on Windows or macOS, you're typing in commands. For those who have grown up using graphical user interfaces or GUIs, this can be quite a shock to the system. Now, it's not all command line all the time. There are numerous Linux distributions, or distros for short, that offer GUIs. Some of these, like Ubuntu or Mint, are designed to be as user-friendly as possible. But even with these distros, there are times when you might need to dive into the command line. This is because Linux was designed to be flexible and customizable, which it achieves by giving the user direct access to its underlying systems. This open-source nature is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it allows for unparalleled customization and control. You're not just allowed, but encouraged to tinker and make the system your own. This is a dream come true for tech enthusiasts and power users, who can tweak and modify to their heart's content. But on the other hand, this flexibility can be daunting for non-tech savvy users. With so many options and so much potential for customization, it can feel like you need a degree in computer science just to get started. This is in stark contrast to the user-friendly interfaces of Windows and macOS, which aim to make computing as simple and intuitive as possible. Furthermore, because Linux is developed by a community of volunteers, there's no one-size-fits-all guide or manual. Each distro can have its quirks, and troubleshooting can often involve trawling through forum posts and technical documentation. This can be a rewarding challenge for some, but a frustrating roadblock for others. In essence, Linux requires a steeper learning curve that not everyone is willing to climb. The second issue that keeps users away from Linux is software compatibility. This is a key aspect that shapes our computer usage, and unfortunately, Linux falls short in this department compared to other popular operating systems like Windows or macOS. Let's take a moment to understand what we mean by software compatibility. In simple terms, it refers to the ability of a software application to run efficiently and effectively on a given operating system. When we say that Linux has software compatibility issues, we're referring to the fact that many popular software applications and games that are readily available on other platforms are not available on Linux. Consider, for instance, the world of productivity software. While Linux does offer some alternatives, they may not match up to the functionality and user experience that software like Microsoft Office provides. The same goes for graphic design applications such as Adobe Photoshop or Illustrator. While open-source alternatives exist, they often require a learning curve and may lack certain features that professionals rely on. Now let's talk about gaming. Linux has made significant strides in the gaming world, but it still lags behind Windows. Many popular games are not available on Linux, and for those that are, performance can sometimes be an issue. Picture this. You've just bought the latest blockbuster game, but you find out it's not supported on Linux. It's disappointing, right? In essence, this lack of compatibility can limit the user experience. It can be a significant roadblock for people who rely on specific software for their work or leisure. While Linux has its strengths, and its community is consistently working towards improving software compatibility, the reality is that it still has a long way to go. So, the lack of software compatibility is another major reason why many users shy away from Linux. It's a barrier that, until overcome, will continue to keep Linux from becoming the go-to operating system for the everyday user. Another crucial factor is hardware compatibility. The world of technology is vast and diverse, and so is the variety of hardware components available. From printers to scanners, webcams to graphics cards, every piece of hardware is unique in its way, adding to the complexity of the compatibility puzzle. Now let's take a little detour into the realm of Linux. Linux, unlike other operating systems, often grapples with hardware compatibility issues. It's not uncommon for a Linux user to find themselves in a situation where their brand new piece of hardware just won't cooperate. This could be as simple as a printer refusing to print, or as complex as a graphics card not performing to its full potential. This isn't to say that Linux can't handle hardware. On the contrary, Linux is quite capable of running a wide range of hardware components. However, the problem lies in the fact that hardware manufacturers often don't provide Linux drivers or support for their products. This means that it's up to the Linux community to create these drivers, which can result in a lag between the release of new hardware and its compatibility with Linux. Now let's compare this with other operating systems like Windows or Mac OS. These platforms enjoy a seamless hardware integration, largely due to the direct support from hardware manufacturers. When you buy a new piece of hardware, it usually comes with a driver CD or a download link for Windows and Mac OS drivers, ensuring that the device will work as intended right out of the box. This discrepancy between Linux and other operating systems can be a significant roadblock for users. Imagine buying a fancy new printer, only to find out that it doesn't work with your Linux system, or investing in a high-end graphics card, only to discover that it's not performing up to par because of a lack of Linux drivers. These hardware compatibility issues can create a frustrating experience for users, further pushing them away from Linux. Lastly, the lack of robust customer support is a significant deterrent for many. While Microsoft and Apple offer dedicated customer support for their operating systems, Linux often falls short in this regard. The decentralized nature of Linux, while being one of its strengths, also contributes to its weaknesses, especially when it comes to customer support. Unlike Windows or macOS, which are developed and backed by large corporations, Linux is largely a community-driven project. This means that there isn't a single centralized authority or organization that users can turn to for support. Instead, users often have to rely on online forums, community guides, or their own problem-solving skills to troubleshoot issues. While this can be a rewarding learning experience for some, it can also be incredibly daunting for the average computer user. Imagine being stuck with a technical issue that prevents you from completing an urgent task and not having a dedicated customer service hotline to call or a tech support chat box to message. For many, this is a real concern when it comes to using Linux. Moreover, the quality of help available can also vary greatly. Since much of the support comes from the community, the responses may range from incredibly helpful to downright confusing. And while there are plenty of knowledgeable and helpful Linux users out there, finding the right advice at the right time can sometimes feel like looking for a needle in a haystack. Additionally, while there are companies that offer paid support for Linux, these services can often be expensive, adding to the overall cost of using the operating system. Plus, for many home users, the idea of paying for technical support for a free operating system seems counterintuitive. In conclusion, while Linux has many strengths, its lack of comprehensive, readily available customer support can deter many potential users. Without readily available assistance, users may feel left in the dark when problems arise. In conclusion, while Linux has its strengths, there are several barriers that prevent it from becoming the default OS for most users. The complexity of Linux, with its steep learning curve and command line interface, can be daunting for those used to more user-friendly interfaces. Then we have software compatibility issues, where popular applications and games are not always available or compatible with Linux. And let's not forget hardware compatibility issues, with certain devices not being supported or functioning properly on Linux. Lastly, there's the lack of readily available customer support, which can leave users feeling stranded when they encounter problems. Each of these hurdles, individually or collectively, can dissuade the average user from adopting Linux as their primary operating system. Until these issues are addressed, it's unlikely that Linux will become the go-to operating system for the average user. But for those willing to surmount these challenges, Linux offers a unique and powerful computing experience.